The great hall of the Galactic Assembly stretched for miles in every direction. Its ceiling was made of living crystal that showed the stars beyond, and its floor was carved from stone taken from 100 different worlds. 12 ancient species had built this place 10,000 years ago, and they had ruled the galaxy from these seats ever since. Ambassador Unibeak stood at the speaking platform and looked up at the massive alien delegates who surrounded her. She was small compared to them. The Velthari delegate alone was 3 times her height, with 4 arms and skin like polished metal. He looked down at her, the way a grown man might look at an insect. The human colony of New Busan has existed in the Kira Nebula for 20 years, Yuna said. Her voice was calm and clear. We have legal treaties. We have signed agreements. The Velthari Empire has no right to claim our space. Laughter echoed through the chamber. It was not human laughter. It was the clicking and hissing and rumbling of a dozen alien species who found her words amusing. The Velthari delegate rose from his seat. His name was impossible for human tongues to speak, so the translation systems called him simply High Commander. I spread his forearms wide and addressed the assembly. Look at this creature, he said. Humanity has been among the stars for less than 200 years. They are children, infants. They do not understand how the galaxy works. He pointed one long finger at Yuna. Your treaties mean nothing. The Kira Nebula contains resources that the Velthari Empire needs. Your little colony is in the way. You will move, or you will be moved. Oh no, did not flinch. She had been an ambassador for 15 years. She had faced threats before. But something in the High Commander's voice told her this was different. This was not a negotiation. This was a warning. I asked the Elder Council to consider our position, she said. We have done nothing wrong. We have followed every law. We have enough. The voice came from the center of the chamber, where the oldest species sat in shadow. The Vorth were ancient beyond measure, and when they spoke, others listened. The assembly will vote. The matter is simple. Does humanity have the right to keep the Kira Nebula, or do we grant access to the Velthari Empire? The vote took less than a minute. 11 species voted against humanity. Only 1 abstained. None voted in favor. Yuna watched the lights change on the voting board, and she felt something cold settle in her stomach. She had failed. 2 million people on New Busan were now in danger, and she had failed to protect them. The matter is decided, the Vorth announced. The Velthari Empire is granted full access to the Kira Nebula. Humanity will remove its colony within 1 standard year. The High Commander smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. 1 year is generous, he said. Perhaps too generous. Yuna opened her mouth to respond, but before she could speak, something strange happened. The lights in the chamber flickered. The living crystal ceiling pulsed with sudden color. And then, from speakers that had been silent for 10,000 years, a voice spoke. It was not a living voice. It was a recording, ancient and crackling with age. But every being in the chamber heard it clearly. This message is for those who come after us. We are the Pale Ones, and we leave this warning for the future. We have seen many species rise and fall. We have watched empires crumble and civilizations burn. But there is one species that frightens us. They come from a small blue world in an unremarkable system. They call themselves humans. The chamber had gone completely silent. Even the Velthari High Commander had stopped smiling. They seem weak, the ancient voice continued. They seem soft. They fight among themselves and waste their energy on petty conflicts. But do not be fooled. When the humans are threatened, truly threatened, they become something else. They become a force that cannot be stopped. We learned this lesson at great cost. When we threatened one of their villages, tribes that had warred for generations, united in a single night, they nearly destroyed us. We barely escaped with our lives. The recording crackled and popped. The lights flickered again. So we leave this warning for all who hear it. Do not provoke the humans. Do not threaten what they love. Do not harm their children or destroy their homes. Because if you do, they will come for you. They will cross any distance. They will fight any battle. They will never stop, never tire, never forgive. The humans remember everything, and they fear nothing. The message ended. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then the Velthary High Commander laughed. It was a loud, mocking sound that echoed off the crystal ceiling. "The Pale Ones," he said, "a species of mystics and cowards who ran away from the galaxy 10,000 years ago. And we are supposed to fear the humans because of their fairy tales?" Other delegates began to laugh as well. The tension broke. The warning was dismissed as the rambling of an extinct species that had lost its nerve. But Una noticed that not everyone was laughing. Some of the older delegates, the ones who had lived for thousands of years, were looking at the human ambassador with expressions she could not read. Was it curiosity, concern, or something else? She gathered her documents and prepared to leave. There was nothing more she could do here. She would have to contact Earth, inform them of the vote, and begin planning the evacuation of New Busan. It would be a disaster. Millions of people would lose their homes, but at least they would be alive. As she walked toward the exit, the Velthary High Commander called out to her, "Ambassador, do you have nothing to say? No final words of protest?" Una stopped. She turned to face him. The entire assembly was watching. "I have only one thing to say," she replied. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through the silent chamber. "You should have listened to the warning." She left without looking back. 3 days later, she received word that the Velthary fleet had already entered the Kira Nebula. They were not waiting a year. They were not even waiting a month. They had no intention of letting the humans evacuate peacefully. The Galactic Assembly had made its decision. Now humanity would make theirs, in her office on Earth. Unibeak sent a single encrypted message to Admiral Taiho Park, commander of Earth's Third Fleet. It contained only 4 words. They ignored the warning. Admiral Park read the message twice. Then he put down his coffee, stood up from his desk, and walked to the window of his office. Outside, the sun was setting over the Pacific Ocean. It was beautiful and peaceful. He knew that peace would not last much longer. "So be it," he said quietly to himself. They made their choice. He reached for his communicator and began making calls. The first was to the Prime Marshal. The second was to the commanders of every human fleet in existence. The third was to the weapons development facility on Mars. Humanity had been patient. Humanity had been peaceful. Humanity had followed the rules and respected the treaties and asked only to be left alone. But now, the galaxy would learn what the Pale Ones had known 10,000 years ago. The humans were done asking. New Busan was a beautiful world. It had green fields that stretched to the horizon, blue skies that reminded the colonists of Earth, and mountains in the distance that turned purple at sunset. 2.3 million people called it home. They were farmers and teachers and engineers. They had built schools and hospitals and parks where children played. They had created a life on this distant world. They were proud of what they had made. Governor Jimin Kang woke up early that morning, as she always did. She made tea and watched the sunrise from her small house on the edge of the capital city. She had been a school teacher before she became governor, and she still missed those simple days. But her people needed her, and she would never abandon them. Her communicator buzzed. It was Lieutenant Hannah Cho, the young officer in charge of the colony's small defense force. "Governor, we have a problem," Hannah said. Her voice was tense. "A fleet has entered our system. A big fleet. Velthary." Jimin set down her tea. "How many ships?" "Over 200. They're heading straight for us." 200 ships. New Busan had exactly 12 small patrol vessels and no real weapons. They were a farming colony, not a military base. They had never needed weapons before. "Get everyone to the shelters," Jimin ordered. "I'm going to try to talk to them." She rushed to the government building and reached the communication center just as the first Velthary message arrived. The High Commander himself appeared on the screen, his metallic face filling the display. "Humans of New Busan," he said, "you have 6 hours to evacuate this planet. Take what you can carry and leave. Any humans remaining after 6 hours will be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly." Jimin stepped forward so the cameras could see her face. "High Commander, we have over 2 million people here. We cannot evacuate in 6 hours. It's impossible. Please, give us more time. Give us ships. Help us relocate our people peacefully." The High Commander stared at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, that terrible smile she had seen in reports from the assembly. "In 6 hours," he repeated. "The countdown begins now." The screen went dark. Jimin turned to her staff. Their faces were pale with fear. "Begin, Eve." "Evacuation procedures," she said. "Get the children out first. Load every ship we have. Contact Earth and request emergency assistance." They worked frantically. Every ship, every shuttle, every vehicle that could reach orbit was loaded with people. Families were separated. Parents put their children on ships and stayed behind to help others. Old people gave up their seats for the young. It was chaos, but it was also beautiful in its own terrible way. The people of New Busan faced death together. They faced it with courage. Lieutenant Hannah Cho coordinated the evacuation from the defense center. She watched the Velthary fleet on her screens, counting down the minutes, praying they would have mercy. They did not have mercy. For hours into the evacuation, the Velthary opened fire. They did not wait the full 6 hours. They did not give any final warning. They simply began shooting. The first blast hit the capital city's main hospital. Hannah watched on her screens as the building disappeared in a flash of light. 3,000 patients, 500 medical staff, gone in an instant. They're firing on civilians. Someone screamed. They're targeting the evacuation zones. Jimin Kong's voice came over the emergency channel. She was still at the government building, still trying to organize the evacuation. "Everyone stay calm. Get to the ships. Do not panic. We will..." Her voice cut off mid-sentence. The government building had been hit. Hannah felt tears running down her face, but she kept working. She had to keep working. There were still ships in the air. There were still people who could be saved. "Commander." Sejinyu was piloting one of the last evacuation shuttles when the order came to retreat. His ship was damaged, leaking atmosphere, and barely able to fly. But he had 43 children on board, and he was not going to let them die. "Lieutenant Cho," he called over the radio. "I'm making a run for the jump point. Cover me if you can." "I'll try," Hannah replied. Her voice was steady, even though she knew she was about to die. The defense center had been targeted. She had maybe minutes left. "Seojin, listen to me. You have to get to Earth. You have to show them what happened here. Your ship has recording equipment. Save everything. Every image. Every transmission. Every death. Earth needs to know." "Hannah, go. That's an order." "Go now." Seojin pushed his damaged ship to its limits. Behind him, New Busan burned. He could see the cities being destroyed one by one. He could see the fields turning to ash. He could see the mountains crumbling under orbital bombardment. His sensors picked up Velthary fighters moving to intercept him. Then they stopped. Something had distracted them. He checked his rear cameras and saw the last of New Busan's defense ships flying directly at the Velthary fleet. 12 tiny ships against 200 giants. They had no chance. But they bought him time. He watched Hannah's ship explode on his screen. He watched all 12 ships die. And then he reached the jump point and activated his engines. The last thing he saw before entering hyperspace was New Busan, the beautiful green world that had been his home. Turning black under Velthary fire, he was badly wounded. Shrapnel had torn through his cockpit and he was losing blood. But he stayed conscious. He had to stay conscious. 43 children were counting on him. "Earth," he whispered into his communicator. "This is Commander Sejinyu of New Busan Colony. I am carrying survivors and evidence. The Velthary have attacked us. They have killed..." Paused, trying to find the words. "They have killed everyone. 1.8 million people dead. They fired on hospitals. They fired on schools. They fired on evacuation ships full of children." Coughed blood onto his controls. The ship was barely holding together, but Earth was getting closer. "I have recordings," he continued. "I have proof. They were laughing. The Velthary soldiers were laughing while they killed us. I saw them execute families who were trying to surrender. I saw them shoot children who were running away. His vision was getting blurry. He set the ship to autopilot and hoped it would be enough. "Tell Earth," he said with his last conscious breath. "Tell them what they did to our children." The ship carrying Seojin, Yu, and 43 orphan children arrived at Earth's orbital station 6 days later. Medical teams rushed to help them. The children were traumatized but alive. Seojin was barely breathing, more dead than alive. But he still clutched the data chip containing the evidence. The recordings from New Busan spread across Earth within hours. People watched in horror as their colony was destroyed. They saw the hospitals burning. They saw the schools collapsing. They saw Velthari soldiers walking through the streets, killing anyone they found, and they saw the Velthari laughing. Just as Seojin had said. They were laughing. Earth had always been a peaceful civilization. Humans fought among themselves sometimes, but they had learned to work together. They had reached the stars with hope in their hearts, believing that the galaxy would welcome them. Now they understood the truth. The galaxy did not care about them. The galaxy saw them as insects to be stepped on. The galaxy had killed their children and laughed about it. Something changed that day. Something deep inside the human race shifted. The grief transformed into something else. Something cold. Something patient. Something very, very dangerous. The Velthari Empire had made a terrible mistake. They had killed human children. And now, across every human world, in every human heart, a single thought was forming. This would not stand. This would never be forgotten. This would be answered that the humans were coming. And they would not stop until justice was done. The United Human. Council met in Geneva 3 days after the recordings from New Busan reached Earth. Every leader, every general, every diplomat from across human space had gathered in the great chamber beneath the Alps. The room was silent as they watched the evidence play on the massive screens. They saw the hospital explode. They saw the children running. They saw the Velthari soldiers laughing as they fired into crowds of unarmed civilians. When the recording ended, no one spoke for a long time. Prime Marshal Do-Yeon Lee stood at the center of the chamber. He was an old man now, with gray hair and deep lines on his face. He had served humanity for 50 years, first as a soldier, then as a commander, and finally as the supreme leader of all human military forces. He had seen many terrible things in his life, but nothing had prepared him for this. "Commander Seojin Yu is still in medical care," he said quietly. "The doctors say he will survive. 43 children survived because of his courage." Paused. 1.8 million did not survive. Among the dead was Governor Jimin Kung, who stayed behind to help evacuate her people until the moment she died. Counselor Nari Wang sat in the front row. She was known throughout human space as the voice of peace. For 30 years, she had argued against military expansion. She had believed that humanity could find its place in the galaxy through diplomacy and patience. She had believed that war was never the answer. Today, she sat in silence, her hands folded in her lap. Her face like stone, Dr. Minji Song, Chief of Human Intelligence, stepped forward to address the council. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for knowing things that others could not discover. "I have information that the council needs to hear," she said. "New Busan was not an isolated incident. Our intelligence networks have intercepted Velthari communications. They plan to cleanse 7 more human colonies over the next 2 years. They call it clearing space for expansion. They do not see us as people. They see us as pests to be exterminated." Murmurs spread through the chamber. 7 more colonies? 15 million more people marked for death. Furthermore, Minji continued, "We have learned that the Galactic Assembly will not intervene. They have already decided that human colonies outside our core systems are not worth protecting. We are alone." Prime Marshal Lee nodded slowly. "Thank you, Dr. Song." He turned to face the full council. "We have a decision to make. We can accept this. We can retreat to our core systems and hope the Velthari are sati. Sfide, we can abandon our colonies and our people and pray that the galaxy leaves us alone." He let the words hang in the air. "We can respond." Counselor Nari Wang rose from her seat. The chamber fell silent. Everyone knew her position. Everyone expected her to argue for peace, for negotiation, for anything other than war. She walked slowly to the speaking platform. Her footsteps echoed in the quiet room. When she reached the microphone, she stood still for a moment, looking out at the assembled leaders of humanity. "I have spent my life believing in peace," she said. Her voice was soft but clear. "I have argued that violence solves nothing. I have believed that if we show the galaxy kindness, they will show us kindness in return." She paused. I was wrong. The chamber stirred. People leaned forward in their seats. "I watched the recordings from New Busan," Nari continued. "I saw what they did to our people. I saw them kill children who were trying to run away. I saw them laugh." Her voice hardened, and I realized something. Peace requires both sides to want it. We wanted peace. They wanted our extinction. She turned to face Prime Marshal Lee directly. "I vote for war," she said. "Total war. Unconditional war. War until the Velthari Empire understands that human lives have value. War until they pay for every child they murdered. War until the galaxy learns that we will not be exterminated quietly." She returned to her seat. The chamber erupted in noise. Some were shocked. Some were crying. Some were standing and applauding. Prime Marshal Lee raised his hand for silence. "We will vote," he said. "The question is simple. Does humanity declare war on the Velthari Empire?" The vote was not close. It was unanimous. Every single representative from every human world voted yes for the first time in human history. Earth had declared total war on an alien species. Prime Marshal Lee wasted no time. Within the hour, he activated Protocol Jindo, humanity's emergency military mobilization plan. The protocol had been created decades ago, just in case. No one had ever expected to use it. Across human space, factories that made farming equipment switched to making weapons. Shipyards that built cargo vessels began building warships. Universities released their students so they could train as soldiers. Retired veterans received calls asking them to return to service. And then something happened that shocked the galaxy. Ships began appearing. Human ships. Thousands of them. Ships that the Galactic Assembly had never seen. Ships that had been hidden in deep space, waiting for a day that humanity had hoped would never come. Admiral Taiho Park stood on the bridge of the flagship, Eternal Dawn, and watched his fleet assemble. 1,200 warships. Another 800 support vessels. Weapon systems that human scientists had developed in secret, never revealing their true capabilities to the galaxy. "They thought we were weak," he said to his officers. "They thought we had no military strength. They thought we were fools who put all our resources into farming and medicine and art." He smiled, but it was not a happy smile. They were wrong. Dr. Unibeek, the ambassador who had been dismissed at the Galactic Assembly, sent one final message to the Elder Council. It contained only 4 words. "You were warned, remember." The message spread across the galaxy in hours. Species who had laughed at humanity suddenly stopped laughing. They watched their sensors with growing unease as human fleets moved into position. They counted the ships and realized they had made a terrible miscalculation. The Pale Ones. Warning played again in the Galactic Assembly. This time, no one laughed. On Earth, Prime Marshal Lee made one final broadcast before the war began. It was transmitted to every human world, and it was also transmitted to the Velthari Empire. To the people of the Velthari Empire, he said, "You have killed our children. You have burned our homes. You have laughed at our suffering. We asked only to live in peace among the stars. You denied us that. You chose war. Now you will have it." He paused, and when he spoke again, his voice was ice. "We are coming for you. Not for conquest. Not for territory. Not for resources. We are coming for justice. We are coming for the 1.8 million. People you murdered on New Busan. We are coming for every child who died screaming while your soldiers laughed." He leaned forward, his old eyes burning with cold fire. You wanted to know what humanity is capable of. Now you will learn, and you will never forget. The transmission ended. Across human space, soldiers boarded their ships. Pilots powered up their fighters. Commanders reviewed their battle plans. The humans were going to war, and the galaxy, for the first time in 10,000 years, remembered the warning of the Pale Ones and felt afraid. The Battle of Vareth Gate lasted 7 hours. Military experts across the galaxy had predicted it would take the humans weeks to break through the Velthari defensive line. They were wrong by a factor of 10. Admiral Taiho Park commanded the assault from the bridge of the Eternal Dawn. He watched his tactical display. As human ships tore through the Velthari formation like wolves through sheep, the enemy had numbers, the enemy had experience, but the enemy had never faced anything like this. Human weapons were not what the galaxy expected. For decades, humanity had shown the universe simple technology, basic ships, and primitive defenses. It was a lie. Human scientists had been working in secret, developing weapons that could crack planets and shields that could stop anything. They had hoped to never use them. Now they used them without mercy. The Velthari flagship is retreating, reported Captain Yoonji Moon. She commanded the stealth carrier Silent Dawn, a ship that could appear and disappear like a ghost. Should we pursue? Let them run, Admiral Park replied. Let them tell their empire what happened here. Let them spread fear. The surviving Velthari ships scattered in all directions. Behind them, the wreckage of 300 destroyed vessels drifted through space. The gateway to Velthari territory was open. Admiral Park activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships, this is Admiral Park. Today we have won our first victory, but this is not the end. This is only the beginning. Remember why we fight. Remember New Busan. Remember the children. A chorus of voices answered him. We remember. Human fleet moved forward into Velthari space. News of the battle reached the Galactic Assembly within hours. The delegates who had dismissed humanity sat in stunned silence as they reviewed the reports. 300 Velthari warships destroyed. Human losses were minimal, fewer than 20 ships. This is impossible, the Vorth delegate whispered. No one defeats the Velthari so easily. No one. But the evidence was clear. The humans were not the weak, peaceful species the galaxy had believed. They were something else entirely. Captain Yoonji Moon led the next phase of the war. Her stealth ships slipped behind enemy lines and attacked the Velthari communication network. Relay stations exploded. Satellites went dark. Within 3 days, the Velthari Empire lost the ability to coordinate its forces. Their blind Yunji reported to Admiral Park. They can't talk to each other. They don't know where we are or where we're going. Good, the Admiral replied. Now, we hunt. The hunting was methodical and relentless. Human fleets appeared without warning, destroyed military targets, and vanished before reinforcements could arrive. Velthari commanders issued orders that never reached their ships. Defensive positions crumbled before they could be organized, but the humans were careful. They did not attack civilian targets. They did not bomb cities or burn farms. When they captured Velthari worlds, they treated the civilians with respect. They provided food and medicine to those who needed it. Sergeant Jiho Shin led a ground team to secure a captured moon. What he found there changed him forever. Admiral, you need to see this, he reported, his voice shaking. There's a labor camp here. Thousands of prisoners. They're not Velthari. They're from other species. The Velthari were using them as slaves. The prisoners were thin and sick. Many had been worked nearly to death. When they saw the human soldiers, they cowered in fear, expecting more cruelty. Instead, Jiho knelt down and spoke to them gently. You're safe now, he said. We're not going to hurt you. We're going to take you home. An elderly prisoner, her scales dull with malnutrition, looked at him with confusion. Why? She asked. Why would you help us? We are nothing to you. Jiho smiled sadly. Everyone is something. Everyone matters. That's what being human means. Word spread across the galaxy. The humans were not conquerors. They freed slaves. They healed the wounded. They fed the hungry. They asked nothing in return. Species that had feared the human advance began to hope instead. Perhaps these strange, soft creatures from the Third Rock were different from the empires that had ruled before. The Velthari Empress Thalav watched her empire crumble from her palace on the homeworld. She had been so confident. Humans were weak. Humans were pathetic. Humans would break at the first sign of real force. She had been catastrophically wrong. Call the Galactic Assembly, she ordered her advisors. Demand that they intervene. The humans are violating galactic law. They are conducting an illegal war. The message was sent. The response came back with, in ours, it was not what the Empress expected. The Galactic Assembly recognizes the human campaign as a justified response to the Velthari massacre at New Busan. The official statement read, we will not intervene. Empress Thalav screamed in rage and threw the message across the room. They abandoned us. Those cowards abandoned us. But even as she raged, she knew the truth. The Assembly had not abandoned her because they were cowards. They had abandoned her because they were afraid. They had seen what the humans could do, and they wanted no part of it. Admiral Taiho Park broadcast a message to the Velthari Empire as his fleet approached their core systems. His face appeared on screens across 100 worlds. People of the Velthari Empire, he said, I speak to you not as a conqueror, but as a messenger. Your leaders made a choice. They chose to murder innocent people. They chose to kill children and laugh about it. They chose to believe that humanity was weak and would not respond. He paused, letting his words sink in. We are not weak. We were patient. We were hopeful. We believed that peace was possible. Your leaders taught us otherwise. Now they will face the consequences of their actions. He leaned forward, his eyes hard. This war will end when those responsible for New Busan face justice. Surrender them to us, and the fighting stops. Protect them, and we will come to your homeworld. We will tear down your palaces. We will put your empress on trial before the entire galaxy. The choice is yours. The message ended. Across the Velthari Empire, people began to whisper. They began to question. They began to wonder if their leaders had doomed them all. On the bridge of the eternal dawn, Admiral Park watched the stars drift by. His fleet was the largest ever assembled by humanity. His soldiers were the most determined warriors the galaxy had ever seen. His cause was just, but he took no pleasure in any of it. Admiral. Captain Yunji Moon stood beside him. The fleet is ready. We can reach the Velthari homeworld in 3 days.
I know,
he said quietly. I just wish it hadn't come to this. I became a soldier to protect people, not to destroy them. You are protecting people, Yunji replied. You're protecting every human colony that would have been next. You're protecting every species the Velthari would have enslaved. Sometimes protection requires destruction. The Admiral nodded slowly. The Pale Ones understood that. That's why they left the warning. They knew what we could become if we were pushed far enough. He straightened his uniform and turned to face his command crew. Set course for the Velthari homeworld. It's time to end this. The fleet moved as one, a tide of steel and fire flowing toward the heart of the empire that had awakened humanity's wrath. Behind them, the freed slaves told stories of their liberators. Ahead of them, an empress trembled on her throne. The humans were coming, and nothing in the galaxy could stop them. The Velthari homeworld was beautiful from orbit. Its purple oceans sparkled under twin suns. Its cities rose like silver towers toward the sky. 6 billion people lived there. They all looked up in terror as the human fleet appeared above them. Admiral. Taiho Park studied the planet through his view screen. His finger hovered near the firing controls. He had the power to destroy everything. Every city, every tower, every life. He could repay the massacre of New Busan 1,000 times over. But he did not press the button. Open a channel to the surface, he ordered. Let me speak to their empress. Empress Thalav's face appeared on the screen. She looked older than she had in the recordings from the Galactic Assembly. Fear had aged her. Her 4 hands trembled as she gripped her throne. What do you want? She demanded. Have you come to kill us all? To burn our world as we burned yours? No, Admiral Park replied. I have come to offer you a choice. Surrender the war criminals responsible for New Busan, submit to a trial before the galactic community, accept responsibility for your actions. Do this, and your people will live. Your civilization will continue. Your children will grow up in peace. The Empress stared at him. And if I refuse, then I will take your world apart piece by piece until I find the ones responsible myself. Your people will suffer. Your cities will fall. Your empire will become a memory. I do not want this, but I will do it if you force me to. For a long moment, the Empress said nothing. Then, slowly, she bowed her head. We surrender, she whispered. I surrender. Do what you will with me. The war was over. 1 year later, Dr. Unibeak stood before the Galactic Assembly once again. The same chamber where she had been dismissed and mocked now welcomed her with respect and fear. She wore a simple black dress, a symbol of mourning for New Busan. She would wear black for the rest of her life. The trials are complete, she announced. Empress Thaliv has been sentenced to life imprisonment. 47 Velthari military commanders have been convicted of war crimes. The Velthari Empire has agreed to pay reparations to the families of the victims and to fund the rebuilding of New Busan as a memorial world. She paused, looking around the chamber at the alien faces watching her. But we are not here to discuss punishment. We are here to discuss the future. Prime Marshal Do-Yan Lee stepped forward. His voice was strong despite his age. Humanity did not want this war, he said. We asked only to live in peace. We were denied that. We were forced to fight, and now we have one. He let those words hang in the air. But we have no interest in becoming what we fought against. We will not build an empire on the ashes of the Velthari. We will not enslave other species. We will not murder civilians because they are inconvenient. He turned to face the Elder Council directly. Instead, we propose something new. The New Busan Accords. A galactic law that protects all civilian populations from military action. A law that says no species, no matter how powerful, can massacre innocent people without consequence. A law that gives teeth to peace. The chamber was silent. Then, slowly, the delegates began to vote. One by one, species that had once dismissed humanity raised their hands in agreement. The accords passed unanimously. As the vote concluded, something strange happened. A holographic figure appeared in the center of the chamber. It was tall and thin, with pale skin that seemed to glow with inner light. A pale one. A member of the species that had been extinct for 10,000 years. Except they were not extinct. We have been watching, the pale one said. Its voice was soft and ancient. We have been waiting. We left our warning millennia ago, hoping the galaxy would heed it. You did not. And now you have learned the lesson we learned so long ago. The figure turned to look at the human delegation. 10,000 years ago, we encountered your ancestors. They were primitive, tribal. They fought among themselves constantly. We thought they were weak. We thought we could take their resources without consequence. The pale one paused. We attacked one of their villages. A small settlement with no military value. We did it to show our power. The holographic figure seemed to shiver with the memory. Within one night, tribes that had warred for generations united against us. They crossed mountains and rivers to reach us. They attacked without fear, without mercy, without stopping. We had superior technology. We had better weapons. It did not matter. They kept coming, and coming, and coming. We barely escaped with our lives. The pale one looked around the chamber. That is why we left the warning. That is why we retreated from the galaxy. The humans are not like other species. They are soft and kind and peaceful until you threaten what they love. And then they become something else. Something unstoppable. Something that will cross any distance and fight any battle to protect their own. The figure began to fade. Remember this day. Remember what you have seen. The humans have joined the elder species now. Treat them with respect, and never ever harm their children again.
How the hologram disappeared.
The chamber remained silent for a long time. 3 months later, Admiral Tai-Ho Park stood alone at the new Busan Memorial. The colony had been rebuilt as a garden world, a place of peace and remembrance. At its center stood a wall of black stone, carved with the names of every person who had died in the massacre. 1.8 million names. The Admiral walked slowly along the wall until he found the name he was looking for. Governor Jimin Kang, the school teacher who had become a leader, the woman who had stayed behind to save her people. He placed a single white flower beneath her name. "We did it," he said quietly. "We made them answer for what they did. We changed the galaxy. Your death meant something." He stood there for a long time, watching the sun set over the purple mountains in the distance. The same mountains that had burned on the day of the massacre? The same mountains that now stood as symbols of renewal? "Commander Seojin, you approached from behind." He walked with a limp now, a permanent reminder of his injuries. But he was alive. And the 43 children he had saved were alive. They had grown up. Some had become doctors. Some had become teachers. Some had become soldiers, determined to ensure that no one would ever suffer what they had suffered. Admiral Seojin said, "Dr. Beek is waiting for you. She says the Earth Council wants to honor you." Admiral Park shook his head. "I don't want honors. I want peace." He looked at the wall of names one last time. Honor them. They're the ones who deserve it. On a distant world, far from human space, a young alien girl sat with her parent and looked up at the stars. "Parent," she asked, "why does everyone fear the humans?" Her parent considered the question carefully. "How do you explain something so complex to a child?" "Because they are kind, little one," the parent finally answered. "They help the weak and heal the wounded. They free slaves and feed the hungry. They believe that all life has value, even life that is different from their own." The child frowned. "That doesn't sound scary." "No," the parent agreed. "It doesn't. But there is another side to them. If you hurt what they love, if you harm their families, if you threaten their children, they will come for you. They will cross the entire galaxy to find you. They will fight until they cannot stand, and then they will keep fighting. They will never stop. They will never forget. They will never forgive." The child shivered. "The elders warned us," the parent continued. "They told us to leave the humans in peace. They told us that the soft-spoken ones from the third rock were more dangerous than any species in the galaxy. We did not listen. Now we remember. Stars twinkled overhead, cold and distant. Somewhere among them, humanity continued to grow and learn and explore. They built new colonies. They made new friends. They healed the wounds of war and looked toward the future with hope. But they never forgot New Busan. They never forgot the children who died. And they never stopped watching the stars, ready to rise again if anyone was foolish enough to threaten what they loved. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The elders' warning was no longer ignored. Do not provoke the humans. They remember everything, and they protect their own.